if it wasn't for seeing other artists do what they're doing, I honestly wouldn't have known that pursuing art could be feasible and possible. I was headed in the conventional like healthcare route. And I remember attending, it was a specific show at the Hillier, and it was the first show that I saw all Black art, and just being in that space with Black artists who created these masterpieces, I I had never seen anything like it, and that was like a turning point for me. I was like, if they could do it, then there's a possibility that I could too. And since then, I've been creating and exhibiting my work.
I really enjoy doing portraits, and I feel like identity, the way that it kind of shows up in my work, I'm usually capturing other people's identity in the portraits. And this is the first time where I'm really sitting with myself to this degree of how much attention I give to other people. And I actually titled this piece Selfish because I feel like it's capturing a lot of selfish moments that I've taken for myself that I normally wouldn't do because I've been raised and conditioned to care for other people all the time. And so it felt very weird to be the subject of my own piece and like the person who's the portrait, getting done. It's very strange in a lot of ways, but I feel like it was necessary to do it because something just was telling me to do it. But I'm very proud of the work at this juncture, and I feel very like excited to continue to explore, getting to know myself. I feel like identity as a whole is really key to me as a trans person, as a Black queer, queer identifying polyamorous person. There's like a lot of intersections where I feel my identity is paramount to my experience because I'm just walking around in this shell, in this body, and it feels sometimes very political, but sometimes I'm just out here trying to figure it out like everybody else. My grandfather was a portrait artist. Actually, this is his self-portrait that he did in probably his 30s or 40s. And I grew up in a house that was surrounded by paintings by him, and he did a lot of landscapes as well, and landscapes show up in my work often. And I think that his art practice really informed mine in a lot of ways. So I'm for this piece I'm using oil paint, and I stretched the canvas. So I built the stretcher bars, and I stretched the canvas myself. Um, I didn't really have any. I didn't have a specific intention with the canvas when I made it, but I knew that um, it was going to be a portrait. It was actually I did have an intention. I was originally going to do a portrait of my partner, but during the time where I was trying to force myself to make things, I was in a really weird mental space. I was very depressed. I was very like self-conscious about my work. And so I made this beautiful canvas, and that's also part of like ADHD where I hyper focus on something, and I'm like, I'm gonna make this beautiful thing. It's gonna be great. And then by the time it's actually time to do it, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I had this canvas stretch, and it was sitting in our storage unit for a long time. So when Rose reached out to me and offered me this time here, I was very much so on the fence of doing a self portrait because I had done other portraits of people. And I was like, I could do mine, but then literally when she asked me like, what am I gonna do? I was like, I'm doing a self portrait. I said it, and now I have to do it, and definitely pushed me, like this opportunity definitely pushed me to do things that I feel like I wouldn't have done otherwise. Because time and work and excuses, and it gets very easy to put, for me, it gets very easy to put myself last. So in a lot of ways, it felt very selfish to be doing this. It felt selfish to be here, but not in a negative way. Like, for the first time, it felt like selfish in a positive way.
I think for me, this experience or this journey, I was actually talking to my mom about this earlier today. It's me living out what I always knew I wanted to do and could do as a kid, but because of life and expectations and everything in between, I kind of silenced that voice, and I'm returning back to that. And for me, I want to continue to create art that is a source of play, and experimentation. And now that I am pursuing this more seriously as a career, I just want to create art and share stories in a playful way. But art that I didn't see growing up, and art that I feel familiar to or that I can relate to, and art that I know that people in my community, specifically Black Americans, can relate to as well, because unfortunately there's not enough accurate representation and celebration of Black people in the media and the arts. And growing up in Florida, I don't remember ever seeing art that highlighted Black people or depicted Black people. And so when I came here from Florida, seeing other artists, especially Black artists, create art that I never saw myself, it was like a light bulb moment for me, for sure. And I became curious and fell into like the best rabbit hole I could fall into and been creating since then. And so for me, I just want to share stories and highlight, like right now my focus is portraiture, and depict Black people and our humanity in ways that feel like a celebration, because I think all people deserve to be and feel celebrated, and unfortunately that hasn't been granted enough to people in my community. And so I want to just create art that just is like a source of light. I want everything I do to give light in some way.
So back in December, I broke my leg at work. It was a work accident. It was very traumatizing, actually. But I had 5 months to sit and either do nothing at all or, figure out a way to pass the time. And I started getting into rereading my old journals. And that process sort of led me to get curious about myself and want to learn more about myself. And in doing that, I was able to sort of look through photos. Like, if I'm looking through to try to find the scans of my journals, I was coming across old photos and memories. And I think when I started to do the self-portrait, something came up for me where I was like, oh, I have a lot of selfies. Like, I have a lot of pictures of myself in the mirror. And I started to put them in a folder, and I didn't really know what was going to happen with them. And over the course of time, I sort of got the idea to create a collage of all of the photos that I took in the mirror. And one of the things that I witnessed other trans masculine people doing on the internet back in the age of Tumblr and early YouTube, people would record their transition and their progress, and they would like be like, this is what my voice sounds like, this is how I'm changing, and kind of do it in real time. And I never wanted to be visible in that way because it felt very vulnerable and very scary, and also very self-centered in a way. Like, I didn't understand why people would want to put themselves out there like that. But I did take pictures of myself throughout my transition for my own personal progress. I wanted to see what how I was changing and keep track. So I had all of these photos that I didn't have anything to do with. They were just sitting in my hard drive. And as I was going through them, I realized I had a lot of photos. So I cut them out and put them in a collage form. And on each one of them, I wrote a note to myself at that time, basically saying things to myself that I wish I heard from someone else. So, like, when I was, 15 or something and like really scared, I was like, it's gonna be okay, you got this, you're making the right decisions, little notes like that. And as all of the steps of this piece have come about in a way that wasn't really planned or orchestrated, but I do feel like I've been working towards this piece really like my whole life.
This specific piece, I took a photo. I took a lot of photos when I was at the 8th Street Festival last year. And it was just so beautiful. It was just like a huge jubilee, it felt. And this specific dancer was doing how would I explain it? A dance native to DC. It's called Beat Your Feet. For me, this is my way of capturing not only this person, but DC culture, Black DC culture, from the New Balance to the red locks to the dancing, and 8th Street here, which 8th Street has always been like a cultural hub and for Black people in DC. And so, yeah, this has been really cool. I would have never in any life imagined this being what I'm doing full time. And I'm really, really grateful. I don't take it for granted. I do have to say, though, I wish I remembered my middle school fiber arts teacher's name, because she doesn't know it, but she really changed my life, because it was from that one fiber arts class that, I don't know, it just like opened up so many possibilities of what I could create. And just like, I had just like this burning desire to I was crocheting like crazy in middle school because of her. I was sewing more because of her. That class really changed the game for me. And I know it's a huge reason why my art is becoming more and more fiber-based, texture-based, fabric-based, because of the class. And also because my grandparents, since I was very young, I always, when they'd visit us, they live in Panama, they're from Panama, they're seamstress in Panama. Every time they would visit us, they'd be sewing. So I was always around a sewing machine. I was always around fabric. And then that middle school class really put it together. It clicked, because that's when I really learned how to sew. And then I went from there. And so there's just so much in my life that I'm so grateful for, because it led me to this moment without me knowing. And again, this is really just the beginning. So I'm very expectant and excited to see where this curiosity leads me and where this leap of faith because that's really what it was, a huge leap of faith, will lead me in my art, because I want my art to be seen before me, honestly. That's like the main thing. So it's been everything in my life, I feel like, has led up to this moment without me knowing. The main thing I want to do here is not to be afraid of experimentation and not to be afraid of making ugly art. Not saying that the art would be ugly, but to me that means more so just creating without expectations, without the pressure of it having to look good and perfect. And I feel like I'm doing that right now, and something that I think will really take me to the next level as it relates to my practice, because experimentation breeds new possibilities, and for me has literally allowed me to expand when it comes to the materials I use and the way I share these narratives and celebrate Black people through my work, and archive, capture memories, and moments in time. And so yes, I'm just thankful. I feel like this is the beginning of, definitely for sure, beginning of a new exploration.
I think a lot of the work that I did prior to this moment really informed my ability to even try this. From going to therapy very consistently for 7 years to navigating a breakup in a poly relationship that, if anyone is like, how does that work? It's a breakup, it sucks. To re-navigating how I interact with family and investigating that, all of the things that I've been doing over the years to try to get myself into a better mental space and to try to feel more at home in my body. All of those things that I've been doing have been a build up to this piece. Like, I feel, even down to the collage of taking pictures of myself, I feel very fortunate that I've kept all these things, because I've been able to look back at them. And also somebody with ADHD, like, I forget things very quickly and very completely. So going back through, I'm like, oh wow, I really did have this amazing experience with this group of people who are artists, and it was a successful event. Or, I've successfully brought my friends together to do something that was meaningful, and when let me reach out to them and ask if they remember, and yes, they do, and it impacted them. So it's like all of the things that I've kind of brushed past, or maybe documented or jotted down because it was bothering me at the time, it's like that has informed me. Like, that has informed the person who I am now. I know that what I'm doing and the gifts that I have and the abilities that I have and the access to resources and community are not what everybody else has. And so if there's something that someone else can take away and be like, I'm going to try journaling for the first time, or I'm going to look at these photos of myself as a kid where it's hard to look at, but it is literally me. Let me see what happens. Like, let me try it. I am hopeful that my experience and my presence can also help people who just don't understand the trans experience at all. Like, yeah. Without any context, it is kind of hard to grasp. Like, why would you choose to do? Like, no, I did not choose to do this. I just wrapped myself up in a cocoon because somebody told me to. Like, my ancestors who've done this for millennia told me to wrap myself in a cocoon, so I did. And I'm here. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel.